Imagine walking into a room and feeling an inexplicable pull towards someone who leaves you drained, anxious, or questioning yourself. You wonder how they even found you. What if I told you it wasn't random, that there's a hidden mistake most of us make, almost without realizing it, that silently acts like a neon sign for toxic people? Tonight, we're going to uncover that subtle, invisible pattern in our behavior that doesn't just invite toxicity, it creates the conditions for it to thrive. Once you see it, you'll never look at your relationships the same way again. Many people assume that kindness and empathy are always protective shields in social relationships. After all, being compassionate is seen as a strength, a moral quality that keeps toxic influences away. But from a psychological perspective, kindness without discernment is often what draws toxic individuals in. Toxic people are not merely looking for friends or partners, they are seeking vulnerabilities. And these vulnerabilities are rarely obvious, they are subtle signals embedded in behavior, often overlooked even by those who consider themselves emotionally aware. One of the most common hidden mistakes is what I call unprotected empathy. This is when someone consistently prioritizes others' emotional needs above their own, not out of manipulation or obligation, but from a sincere desire to care. The problem arises when this care becomes indiscriminate, when boundaries are blurred, and the distinction between generosity and self-sacrifice disappears. Psychologically, toxic individuals are highly attuned to such patterns. They sense a person who can absorb their emotional chaos without resistance, who can soothe without complaint, and who may internalize blame to preserve the relationship. This is not about weakness, it is about a mismatch between emotional openness and protective boundaries. When someone unconsciously signals that they will tolerate manipulation or emotional abuse in the name of compassion, toxic personalities perceive this as an opportunity rather than a challenge. Studies in social psychology show that individuals who have high empathy but low assertiveness are at greater risk of being targeted repeatedly by people who exhibit manipulative or narcissistic traits. This doesn't mean empathy should be abandoned, rather, it must be paired with self-awareness and clear personal limits. The hidden mistake, then, is assuming that kindness alone is a shield. In reality, kindness without boundaries can act as an open door. It is subtle, so subtle that most people only notice it in retrospect, after repeated interactions have left them feeling drained, anxious, or diminished. Understanding this pattern is the first step in reclaiming control over your relationships. By learning to pair empathy with discernment, compassion with limits, you create an environment where authentic connections thrive, and toxicity is naturally repelled. This is the paradox of human relationships, our greatest strength, if unguarded, can become the very thing that draws in the wrong people. The second hidden mistake that attracts toxic people is less about what you do outwardly and more about the subtle messages you send through your boundaries, or rather, through the lack of them. It's not simply low self-esteem that signals vulnerability, it's inconsistent boundaries caused by fear of emotional loss. Many individuals genuinely want healthy, balanced relationships, yet they unconsciously allow others to overstep because of an underlying fear of rejection, abandonment, or conflict. Toxic individuals are exceptionally skilled at detecting this inconsistency. They can sense when a line is drawn and, more importantly, when it can be crossed without real consequence. Psychologically, this creates an invitation, a signal that the person is willing to sacrifice their own comfort, values, or time to avoid discomfort in the relationship. Over time, this pattern becomes a self-reinforcing loop. The more someone yields in order to avoid tension, the more toxic behavior is validated, and the more the person feels obligated to continue yielding. This is often misunderstood as weakness or naivety, but it is actually a deeply human response rooted in attachment psychology. People who fear emotional loss may subconsciously overcompensate, giving more than they receive, tolerating disrespect, and rationalizing behavior that should feel unacceptable. Toxic individuals exploit this with precision, escalating their demands gradually while maintaining a veneer of charm or neediness. This is why it is called a hidden mistake. It is not obvious to the outside observer and often goes unnoticed by the individual themselves until significant emotional damage has occurred. The critical point is that boundaries are not just rules, they are signals to others about what you will and will not accept. Inconsistent or unclear boundaries communicate availability for exploitation, even if your intentions are entirely positive. Recognizing this pattern is essential for self-protection. By developing consistent, firm, and emotionally intelligent boundaries, a person can convey respect for themselves and establish a framework that discourages toxic behavior. It is a delicate balance. You do not become closed off or cold, but you no longer offer implicit permission for mistreatment. Ultimately, the hidden mistake is not in being open-hearted, empathetic, or generous. It is in leaving the door open for others to take advantage of those very qualities. Once this pattern is identified, it can be corrected, and the cycle that attracts toxicity can be broken. In the end, the presence of toxic people in our lives is rarely a matter of chance. It is often a reflection of subtle patterns in our own behavior. The hidden mistakes of unprotected empathy and inconsistent boundaries are not flaws to shame ourselves for, they are signals that can be understood, corrected, and transformed into strength. True emotional intelligence lies in pairing compassion with discernment, kindness with limits, and openness with self-respect. When we learn to recognize these patterns, we stop attracting toxicity, not by becoming cold or defensive, but by creating a space where only healthy, mutually respectful relationships can exist. Remember, the power to shape your social environment lies not in controlling others, but in mastering the signals you send. Guard your energy, honor your boundaries, and cherish your empathy. It is your most valuable gift, but only when paired with the wisdom to protect it. The moment you do, toxic people no longer find you, they simply find someone else. And that is the freedom and strength that comes from self-awareness and conscious living.